I think I've mentioned in a previous episode what I learned from Ed Milet about deadlines, that when you set deadlines for yourself for a particular project or goal, that consciously and subconsciously your mind is then drawn to whatever it is that you have the deadline for, and you naturally bring more of your attention, experience, and expertise and creativity to whatever that thing is. And today's episode is all about that very thing, deadlines, and how they can help us, and my personal experience with setting them for myself and how it's helped me to not only achieve my goals, but also it's helped me to separate from the things that stress me out. More than anything else, deadlines are the thing that help me to detach from the stressful things that I ruminate on. So join me for a little bit while I talk about some specific things that I have set deadlines for, how they have helped me, and hopefully how they can help you. First, let's just define deadlines in general and what does it mean? Because I think sometimes there's some negative connotations with that word, right? Like we hear the word deadline and it automatically reminds us of school or work or something stressful that we have to do, a deadline set for us by someone else. I'm not talking about that today. I'm talking about the deadlines that we purely set for ourselves, for the things that we want to accomplish, okay? So let's make that distinction right off the bat, that I'm talking about deadlines we set for ourselves, not those put on us by other people. And the kinds of deadlines that we can set for ourselves can really be anything, right? It can have to do with our family goals. So maybe you've set a deadline for yourself of spending 20 minutes a day with each one of your kids before 6 p.m. Okay? So maybe you have a personal goal of, 20 minutes one-on-one with each kid before 6 p.m. Maybe it's a creative goal like mine, where it's like if I have a story that I'm working on, I will set a deadline for when I want to finish that story. Okay, I'm going to be done with it by Monday. And maybe it's Friday, or I want to finish it by the end of January. I've set lots of different deadlines depending on what I was working on. Maybe you have an exercise deadline where, and there can be multiple stages of these deadlines too. So like with the example of exercise, maybe you decide, I want to join a dance class by the end of September. Or I've joined this dance class. I love it. I want to make sure that I get in at least 2 sessions of this dance class before the week is over. So you have a deadline of getting it done sometime between Monday and Sunday, attending at least twice. There's so many deadlines that we can set for ourselves. If you want to take up knitting, I'm going to watch the YouTube how-to video by the end of the day today. I'm going to knit my first blanket by December. Whatever it might be, you can get creative with your deadlines, And the cool thing about deadlines is that set something that works for you. Just try it out. And if you don't meet that deadline or it doesn't work, set a new one. Don't give up. I'm going to give you some more examples. So those are just some examples of the kinds of deadlines we set for ourselves and sort of what they can look like. To illustrate my point a little bit more clearly, I'm going to talk about some specific deadlines that I set for myself using the most recent example, because that's the best way I can think to describe it. So if you listen to my recent episodes, you will know that I was writing a story about Black Widow, right? I mentioned in my Tuesday night special episode how frustrated I am with how women are represented in the media and how so many really cool characters and stories have potential, but it seems like they're just run into the ground or not given the time and attention that they deserve. And so I was very frustrated with how Marvel's Black Widow was sort of treated in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that there just wasn't a whole lot of great marketing that went into her movie. She was killed off in Avengers Endgame and not a part of the big finale when she was such a crucial part of the team for so long, and she was kind of just left out of that. I was frustrated with how they honored her, or really didn't honor her, because, there was like a tiny little bit of grief shown by maybe Hawkeye and the Hulk, and that was it. Whereas Tony Stark, when he dies, he gets this whole big funeral scene where all these characters are present and posed so perfectly, and he gets brought up so many times in Spider-Man's story. And so I was just really frustrated at the lack of attention that the female superheroes were given and how they were sort of treated in general. So I wanted to write a story about Black Widow. And I'm all about, like, a lot of my stories are about sort of resurrection and redemption, people kind of coming back from the dead and being given, you know, a better story. I did the same thing with Daenerys. And so with this Black Widow thing, it just kind of hit me. Like, I found myself, okay, so like I've been writing for a long time, and I'm pretty used to knowing that I'm gonna finish a project if I start it. It's just a matter of when. And when I started this Black Widow thing, the idea kind of just came to me. And then as time goes on and I develop my ideas further, it's like, well, when do I want to have this out by? And, you know, when it comes to the deadline for this particular story, all of a sudden I just got kind of a bug in my ear. And I was like, I need to finish this ASAP, because I was kind of working on it here and there. And all of a sudden it just hit me. It was this gut feeling I had that I needed to just do it, okay? And sometimes things that you need to set deadlines for will hit you. Maybe you have an idea, like my husband, he wanted to do stand-up on stage for a while, but all of a sudden he's like, no, I have to do this by August 15th or I'm just not gonna do it. And all of a sudden, you know, even though he had been toying with the idea for a while, this sense of urgency just hit him and he felt like he needed to do it, and he did it. Listen to that internal compass when it comes to deadlines. If all of a sudden you get this sort of sense of urgency, like, okay, I really gotta just do this, listen to it. That's what happened to me with this Black Widow story. When I first started writing it, I thought it would maybe take me a few months, but all of a sudden it's like, no, I'm gonna finish this in a few days. And I knew I wanted it to be a short story, so that was feasible. And I decided it must have been Friday. I decided last Friday that I wanted to finish it on Saturday. Okay? And that meaning like by the end of the day, the next day. And so I was gonna, every spare moment that I had, I was gonna be writing. I wasn't gonna be reading. I wasn't gonna be talking to my family, because that's the reality of the situation. Is I kind of set my family up with other activities and focused on my story because I knew I needed to get it done. And that's what I was going to do. Well, Saturday came and went, even though I met my goals to the best of my ability, because as much as I worked on the story as often as I could, there were moments where I hit a wall and my brain just kind of paused and I couldn't write anymore. I knew I needed to stop, or I was going to write something that I wasn't very proud of. So I didn't finish Black Widow. Or, well, the story that I wrote about Black Widow is called Widow's Soul, so that's the title of my story. I did not finish it by Saturday evening, you know, after setting the goal of finishing it on the Friday before. But although I didn't finish it on the deadline I set, I still had it in my head that I needed to finish it in the next couple of days at the very least. And with each day that came after that, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, it was like, okay, I'm going to finish this today. I didn't end up finishing it until Thursday morning. But that was okay. It was only a few days past my deadline. And here's why it's okay. When you set a deadline for yourself and you're actually working towards it and just realizing that the project needs a little bit more time, you still have that sense of urgency in your head of like, okay, no, I didn't finish it by today, but I'm going to do it tomorrow. And then you commit to working on it just as hard, if not a little bit harder than you have been, and you will still finish it within a reasonable amount of time. And this is where deadlines can be flexible and where I don't want you to give up if you don't meet your deadline. Because you can always try again, or like, okay, I guess I didn't finish it today, but I'm gonna put my energy toward it tomorrow, and I'm gonna finish it by Wednesday. You might be thinking, how is this different than like procrastination, or this is sounding a little similar to just putting things off, but it's not. There's an important distinction, and that distinction is you're not ignoring the project. You're actively working on it when you've set this deadline, and accepting that if you didn't necessarily finish it when you thought you would, you can still keep pushing to get it done. But because of the fact that you had a tight deadline set, like in my case, I was giving myself, basically 36 hours, I wanted to keep the time that I finish it as close to that as possible. And instead of pushing it out more like I would procrastination, when I would work on it, it's like, okay, how can I get as close to getting it done Saturday as I planned? How close can I get it? I didn't get Saturday, but how close can I finish this to Saturday? So there's an important difference. I wasn't putting it off. I had that tight deadline. I didn't meet it, but then I was still working hard to get as close to it as I possibly could. You have to have that sort of internal motivation to finish it. And maybe I shouldn't have used the word motivation because we're not always motivated to do things. The word I probably should have used was internal determination, because that fits a little bit better, because there were times when I didn't feel like working on it, but I did it anyway because I had a deadline that mattered to me. Here's the other important thing about deadlines. Your values and your passions have to be attached to them. Okay? That's one of the only ways that you're going to meet them. And what I mean by values is the things that are the most important to us, the things that we have a stake in. So in the case of my Black Widow story, I value feminism. I value equality. I value reconciliation, redemption, all of those things. And I wanted to write this story because it's important to me to put stories out there that are more equalizing for women. It's important to me to put stories out there that aren't just centered on sex, romance, and rising to the top and being better than everybody else. That's important to me. It's directly tied to my values. And so that's why I was able to meet the deadline, because it was tied to something important to me, something that matters to me. So when you're setting deadlines for yourself, think about your values, because if you don't value something related to that deadline and that project, you're going to be less likely to meet it, okay? So it's fairly obvious in the case of, all right, I'm going to spend 20 minutes a day with my kids, that deadline before the end of the day. The value there is not just family, it's not generic. It's, well, I've done the research and I've learned that 20 minutes of uninterrupted time a day with kids can significantly improve their overall health and our bond. And I want to have a healthy bond with my kids, and I want my kids to be healthy, so I'm going to do this. Not just because I have to, but because I know about the emotional and relational benefits. That's huge when it comes to setting these deadlines. In the case of the dance class, well, that one's easy, right? My physical health is important to me. Maintaining my physical health, making sure I stay active, that's important to me, so I'm going to meet this deadline even when I'm not motivated to. It's directly tied to my value of being healthy. Really, any project that you have, make sure it's tied to your values when you set the deadline, because you're much more likely to meet it if it's something that matters to you. Okay, so deadlines are huge in that they can help us actually get our projects done. So if you have something you've really wanted to do, set a deadline for yourself and do your best to absolutely meet it. Spend your every waking hour you have on that, every moment that you can. And even if you don't meet the exact original deadline that you set, you will still land somewhere in the ballpark and actually accomplish your goals. So self-deadlines are huge. Here's the other reason why they're important, and this is what I learned from Ed Milet. If you don't set a deadline to get a project done, you're not thinking about it as much, right? Because it's like, oh, well, if you can just get around to something whenever, your intentional thought is not going to be in the direction of whatever the project is that's tied to that deadline. When you want to accomplish something by a certain time, and you know that you have this date or this time coming up, your mind is naturally going to be drawn to ways for you to accomplish that project by the deadline in the best, most creative way possible. So to give you an example from my Black Widow story, because I know I'm finishing this by Saturday, or because when I didn't finish it Saturday, I'm like, okay, now this day, I'm looking around in my environment for inspiration. I'm thinking about it more. I'm looking for pieces that I can tie into my story. I'm looking for things that I can add. I'm thinking about what I can do next. So even when I'm not sitting down and actively working on it, I'm thinking about it when I'm going for a walk. I'm thinking about it when I'm cooking. I'm thinking about it in the shower and getting some ideas there too. I'm thinking about it when I go to bed and when I wake up, because I know that I need to get it done. I can absolutely say that this is the case even before I heard Ed Milet's episode about deadlines. I can absolutely attest to having them naturally lending to your conscious and unconscious mind being more drawn to it. Because even before I heard that episode, I had other stories that I was working on that I wanted to finish by the end of January, or that I wanted to finish by Christmas, or whatever it is. And because I had those deadlines, I was thinking about it more. I was looking for more inspiration, and I made a better product because I was giving it more of my time and attention, even when I wasn't actively working on it. And this is one of the most important points when it comes to deadlines, is that you're working on it even when you're not working on it. You know, you're giving it your time and attention. You're drawing inspiration from the things around you. And you would be surprised when you have something in your mind, what can inspire you. Things that might seem disconnected are not disconnected at all. They can actually help. And I'll give you an example. I've watched David Blaine's Do Not Attempt, I think that's what it's called, his series that he has on Hulu and I think maybe Disney Plus. I've mentioned it on here before. And I watched it just because I was interested, you know, because he went around the world doing these crazy stunts and I wanted to see. And in the episode where he swims under the ice, right? He holds his breath under the ice and then punches up through the ice to get out of it. That is my worst nightmare. I hate the cold, and I think all of us can relate to being terrified of being trapped under ice, much less in frigid temperatures, right? So that actual stunt is something I would never, ever want to attempt, yet I was inspired by him. And the way that the episode was created and how epically he was swimming with the music and then punching up into the ice, it gave me some inspiration for my Daenerys story, which I was working on at that time. And there was a character who I was writing, and, you know, he happened to be in a river of ice, and that punch scene of punching the ice inspired me to have a moment like that with my character, where my character was swimming up this river and had to punch through some ice. And so you would be surprised when you have a deadline, because I had a deadline of when I wanted to finish Daenerys, and it was going on when that episode came out. So because I had this deadline, even though when I sat down to watch this David Blaine special, I wasn't thinking, all right, I'm going to look for ideas for Daenerys. I wasn't consciously thinking that. But as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh my God, I could add that to my character. I could have my character punch through ice like that. That's so cool. This is what I mean. You would be surprised how seemingly unrelated things can help you accomplish your project or your goal, whatever it might be. And even when, you know, you weren't originally thinking about it, your ideas naturally connect when you know you have to get your project done by a certain time. There's probably a bunch of things that you could think of. If you know you have this dedicated time that you need to have with your family, you will probably get more inspired about different activities to work on with your kids or your family. If you know, all right, I got these 20 minutes a day that I'm going to spend, so I'm going to, you know, your mind is naturally going to be looking for ideas and ways to spend that. So it's really, really important. And all of these deadlines help us grow, right? The more that we're meeting our projects and our goals and our relationships, all that stuff, the more that we're meeting those goals and those deadlines, the more that we're growing, the more that we're becoming the kind of person who actually has something to talk about. Right? I think so many people are frustrated with conversations because people don't have anything to say. How many of us get stuck in conversations because people ask the typical things? Oh, how's the job? What are your kids doing? What sports are they in? And the conversation just sort of dies there because people don't know how to ask about each other's values, but people also don't have anything else to talk about because they're not setting any personal growth goals. They don't have anything they're working on. Think about if somebody's working on a mystery novel, or they're in a pickleball team and they're trying to improve their progress, or they're in a volleyball league and they want, when you have personal deadlines and goals, or you're in a dance class, or you're in a painting class and you have a goal of learning how to do acrylic paints by, the end of the year, whatever it is. It enriches our conversations because we have things we're working on. We have things we're thinking about. Our brain naturally just lights up a little bit more because we're constantly looking for ways to be creative rather than just going through the motions. So deadlines aren't just deadlines. They increase our creativity. They increase our growth because we're actively growing. We're actively working on something. We're setting challenges for ourselves that we're trying to meet. So we have more to talk about and more to ask each other about, which is crucial. And the final thing that I'm going to talk about with how deadlines can help us has been really apparent to me today too. In the last couple weeks, because my family has been going through some really stressful stuff. If you heard my husband when he was on, we've got some pretty serious things that we're dealing with right now that demand our time and attention. And the problem when you're going through something difficult with, and you're trying to deal with that with other people who are making it difficult, it can be so draining. And it's easy to cross the line from, okay, we have to talk about this now, to we're just stuck in the cycle of talking about it because it's caused us so much stress that we're just caught in this stress loop. We're caught in the stress loop of the nerve of these people, of the stress of this thing. And it doesn't matter if you're going through something personally stressful like this, or maybe it's your job. Maybe your job is really stressing you out. Maybe your religious organization is stressing you out. Maybe your family is stressing you out. And the thing that's stressing you out is not something you can walk away from, right? It's something that you have to deal with. And it's something that's not going to go away overnight. So let's say you're dealing with something stressful. Your thoughts are drawn to it, your conversations are drawn to it, and you're having a really hard time just not ruminating on it. Deadlines. My having this deadline of this Black Widow story I wanted to write pulled me out of my stress loop more powerfully than anything else. And it pulled me out because my thoughts needed to be actively engaged to create this thing. Instead of letting my mind wander into thinking about the so many layers of this stressful situation, my mind was wandering into, how can I create this scenario for the characters? How can I send a message of equality and redemption through this action or that? My brain was forced to kind of, instead of scrambling about the stressful thing, it was forced to kind of make this web of creativity instead. It pulled me out of it. When I caught myself ruminating, I could easily switch gears to this deadline that I had, this project that I had, and focus on that instead. My husband would say the same for his comedy, right? He has a deadline for himself of going at least every Sunday night and doing his stand-up. Because he has this deadline, he needs material for each week to do when he goes up on stage. And it's a similar thing. Instead of focusing and ruminating over and over again on just this stressful thing, he can switch gears and focus on his stand-up. He can switch gears and focus on this creative thing that he's doing rather than just ruminating on the stressful thing. So deadlines, more than many other things, can help cycle us out of the stress loops. It demands your time and attention and energy, but it demands it in a positive way. Because all of these projects that we're doing for ourselves that we have deadlines for, they're things for us, right? In one form or another, they're things that are meant to help us live the best version of ourselves, right? They're things that matter to us. They're tied to our values. They're things that are at our core, the thing that goes deeper and beyond all of the stressful things of our day or the stressful things that are forced upon us. And that's the beauty of it. And so I want to challenge you today. If you've been thinking about a project, or you've been thinking about a class you want to join, something you want to create, time that you want to spend, an intentional time that you want to spend in your relationships, I'm going to challenge you to set a deadline for yourself. Once a week, or get it done by the end of the month, whatever it is. Just think about, okay, what is enough time to actually, do this in a quality manner, and what is enough time for me to accomplish what I need to for this deadline in a way where I'll meet my goals. And be flexible with it. Don't give up just because it might not work the first time. reevaluate. Or if you don't meet it, well, don't give up. Just keep trying to meet it as close to that deadline as possible, and you would be amazed at how things grow over time. When I started my writing career, I just wanted to write a book, and it took me a few years, and I wrote that book. But then it was like, oh no, I'm going to write another one and another one. And now I'm writing multiple stories, in a year, sometimes in a month, sometimes in a week, because I've trained my brain to naturally set deadlines for the next story, the next volume, the next project. And just like anything else, the more you practice it, the more you do it, the more you grow and the better you get at it. Who knows, maybe this hobby or this value that you're making these deadlines for could eventually become your lifestyle and your career. You could get to a point where you can just support yourself with this thing that you're passionate about. It's amazing what things can grow into. But start by just setting some deadlines for yourself and allowing yourself to meet them. It's transformational in the best ways. And I want to end this episode by thanking you for setting the deadline of listening to my new episodes each week. I appreciate that. Thanks for coming.